What is up, Shark Nation? Welcome to another episode of the SharkPod. We are live from my Greystone studios, aka my box room in Greystones, and we've got Mark Baker out there in Glenageary as usual. Mark Baker, how's it going?
I'm doing good, Luke. How are you?
Sorry, I'm doing really well. I was gonna where that came from. We try to keep it family friendly on this this podcast here. Paddy Galloway is our guest out there. How's it going, Paddy?
I'm going great. It's great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Paddy, where are you based?
I'm from Carlow.
You're from Carlow, and from Carlow to the world, YouTuber by trade, YouTube consultant by, I guess, profession. How would you describe yourself to the listeners out there in Shark Nation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a YouTuber first. I've been a creator. I'm a very creative person. I've always been really interested in making videos. Started in my childhood. I started at about 11. I started filming videos myself. Always been interested in the actual filming, the photography, that side of things. But what I noticed over time is my real aptitude and skill was in the actual growing and the audience, scaling an audience, using tactics to grow, understanding social media algorithms and social media audiences and how to leverage them to build a business, sell products, build a big media business, whatever it be. And essentially over the last 4 or 5 years, I've realized that's a really valuable skill in today's world. So I've been transitioning to myself from just a creator to actually a YouTube consultant who works with multiple other creators. And in the last 2 years, I've worked with multiple 1 million plus creators, some of the biggest creators in the world, on their strategy, their monetization and everything in between. I
love this. It's just like, it's one of those things where, you know, I could work in my corporate job all the time and I've got all these reports to do and stuff like that. But it's like the good thing about sales is that you do have a little bit of creativity when you're, you know, coming up with deals and all that type of stuff. But I do love making content. Obviously, I love the podcasting. Something I find very difficult is to get any traction on YouTube whatsoever. Do you like it, right? So it'd be great to have a chat with you about that. But when you say some of the biggest YouTube names, I was on your channel there before we started doing a little bit of research, and some of the people that you're working with are the absolute biggest names. Like, Mark, have you ever heard of Mr. Beast?
My kids were only talking about him today. They said he gave away €1 million or $1 million or something. Oh, they waffled on about him for about 5 minutes. I don't. They're 7 and 9. So just to give you context, big gamers, that type of thing, Roblox, Minecraft, but all they watch, 90% of what they watch is YouTube.
It's crazy, and I've got it like that as well. So I've got a smart TV, and I hate terrestrial TV so much, like Dahi O'Shea and that, just, you know, talking almost about nothing. It's not nothing, but it's almost nothing. And I have to sit, you know, without YouTube, you have to kind of just let them figure out what to show you. Do you know what I mean? Why is it like, you know? So I'm on YouTube. The experience isn't, you know, as good as it could be yet, but I think that's the future for sure. And the great thing is, like, people like Paddy and people like Mr. Beast can get on there, and there's no gatekeepers anymore. You can just get on and get cracking. Yeah. So when you started making videos first, did you upload them to YouTube? Was that the first kind of platform that you started using?
Yeah, and that's the kind of gatekeeper phrase and way of putting things. I think it's really relevant, because I guess, so you picture myself like a 10-year-old, kind of normal background, don't have any family in business or media or TV or whatever. So if I looked at TV, or if I looked at filming or photography, and I thought, how can I break into those industries? How could I actually, you know, make a movie? You know, you need your production assistants, you need your cameras, all these expensive equipment. But you looked at YouTube and you saw the biggest people on YouTube at the time, which is kind of 2005, 2006. And they were filming videos that you could just look at and say, I could do that. So for me, it was kind of, I was filming videos and I was already doing that myself anyway. And then YouTube kind of sprung up and was growing, and I saw lots of people doing it. And I was like, wow, you know, never really thinking about business or, you know, making a living doing it. Just purely, I'd love to put something out to the world that other people could consume and enjoy and laugh at, or enjoy or get education from, whatever. So yeah, when I was like 10, 11, I started uploading to YouTube, and I wasn't one of those child prodigies on YouTube that blow up, which probably was to my benefit, because a lot of those people don't turn out too well, especially the people that started so young. But I was pretty bad at the start, didn't understand anything, didn't understand how to tell a good story, didn't understand how to film properly. But the passion was there. I just really loved the idea of building something myself, creating it, and then showing it to the world. And this kind of, the passions remained then for what is it, 12 or 13 years. I'm still loving it every day.
It's amazing. So like, so you can make something, and we get a little buzz about that with the podcast as well. Like we look at the stats and you see that, you know, it was this whatever episode's a big hit in Malaysia this week or whatever. You know, it's good on that. But it's amazing how you can make something in Ireland now, and you suck in eyeballs or I was going to say earballs, but eardrums rather, from anywhere in the world to listen to you. It's such an amazing thing, and like, at a cost point that, you know, 50 years ago you couldn't like get. So how many subscribers do you have? You got 250,000 or something. Like, imagine tapping into that type of audience.
Yeah,
you can't buy it. Like, it's crazy.
it's crazy.
You have to earn that, you know. And so with that, with your kind of audience now, are they mostly people who are creators, who are looking for tips on how to produce great videos and stuff like that? Who do you think your kind of audience that you're making videos for?
Yeah, it's primarily like when I looked at so before I created my channel, which is about YouTube advice and kind of breaking down case studies, I've been doing YouTube for a really long time, so I had a lot of kind of experience, and I built some other channels in the past that had you know, built livings for myself and actually been successful and being quite large in size. So when I started that channel, I looked around and I looked at a lot of the other YouTube advice channels, and they were good, but they were very heavily focused at complete beginners. So there were things like, you know, how to set up a channel, top 5 YouTube tips, those sort of things. And from the start, like, you know, these things you usually stumble into. It's not all just complete foresight, but over time I kind of thought like there's surely an underserved market for actual kind of YouTubers themselves who really, you know, they get the basics, but they want something a bit deeper and they want to go into more depth. But at the same time, maybe there's a type of content that fits lots of different audiences. So I was like, what does a video look like that it doesn't matter if you've got 100 subscribers or 100 million, it's still interesting and educational to you? And that's where I came up with the kind of concept and the ideas for my videos. I really did it for myself first. I saw the videos that I thought I could make, and I was like, these would be just so beneficial for me to study and me to create. So surely there's gonna be someone else out there that likes them too. I never knew it'd be this many people, but I kind of had that idea at the start. So I define them as typically, like, I sometimes call them like the YouTube middle class, but I think that's too narrow of a term, because there is complete beginners. There's people who don't even have any intention of starting a YouTube channel. They just find the ideas really interesting, the video stories really interesting. And then, like, I know firsthand that there's YouTubers like 7 million, 20 million, 50 million, 70 million. I don't know about 100 million. Maybe there is, who watch the videos as well, and comment regularly and connect with me on social media too. So it's a great thing. And it's also obviously good from the business point of view as well, because the new creators, typically there's a big industry for people selling products to new creators and whatever. And it's never really interested me as much, because it's difficult being a new creator, which is obvious. And that's why there is so much products and stuff around for them. But when you look at bigger YouTubers who already, you know, they're making money, if you can provide them a service that essentially can come in and say, my goal here is to make more money, to get more views. And it's not all about money, like to get more views, to spread the impact, to get the videos out to more people. I could just tell it would be very valuable. And that's kind of where it all stemmed from.
I love the idea of serving that kind of middle ground. I think generally in business, there's a huge part there in loads of different industries. I was thinking about this, that like if you want to learn a language or something, there's loads and loads of beginner stuff. It's almost all beginner stuff. And then there's a big jump to, you know, being able to speak the language. But there's this huge chasm in the middle that I found as well when I was kind of learning stuff like that. And that was just one example, but there's even we do it in HubSpot. We have like crazy advanced onboarding for, you know, giant companies, and then loads of content for, you know, people just getting started with the product. But there's like all of our customers already have the product and are using it on a daily basis. They almost get no content, you know, because they're already in the door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's really interesting. Okay, and so from Mark, I don't know if you've seen some of these videos, but there's a huge amount of analysis. And it's almost like when I was thinking about this, because I didn't know exactly what your business model was, but I was thinking, you know what, this is like a shop window for you as well, to say, I know exactly how they're doing this. Do you know what I mean? Was that part of the motivation as well, to kind of show off, I am the guy who knows this, like, you know? Yeah. Like, because like, I mean, it is what I'm really passionate about anyway. So if you ask me to make videos on like top 7 tips for beginners on YouTube, I kind of be a bit like I'm not really that interested in it. Like, it's just the basic things.
But what I love doing is going deeper. And I do that myself anyway, even if I wasn't making a living or even if it was just for my own channel in a different niche and I wanted to learn from other channels, I do the same thing. So yeah, it is a way to show off. It is a great kind of way to show that I can walk the talk as well. I mean, like there's this phrase like that people use sometimes, like I lead people to a treasure I cannot possess. And I think that's very common for like the kind of online marketing world of, how to get rich or how to grow a YouTube channel or how to do these things. And then you actually look at the person doing it and that's how they're making their money. They're not making their money through a channel. Whereas for me, I mean, my latest videos got, I think, like 960,000 views in 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks or something. And that's like the perfect proof point if I know what I'm talking about. Whereas I can, everything I say in the videos, I typically apply in the videos myself and do myself and execute. And I've actually had people come up to me and said, like big channels that might be making multiple millions per year. They say to me, the reason I booked in with you for consulting or the reason I did a deal with you is because it's clear you know how to do it yourself. And you're not just kind of showing people ways that could work. You're actually showing things that do work and you show them yourselves.
It's such an interesting business as well. So it's like we talked to recently, like, so what happens on the SharkPod is, Mark, don't we get into a groove of something? Maybe it's because it's what me and Mark are reading about at a time, and then there'll be a whole tranche of investment advice that people on, or digital marketers. It seems to go in kind of waves, and we've had a lot of digital marketers on over the last, say, 2 months or so, and their business model is, they're organizing content as well, but mostly kind of advertising and stuff like that. But your model is consulting, as in people can book time with you, or do you work on projects for them, or is there like a long-term relationship you have with these guys, or you're just like, get on the phone, stop doing that, do this,
Yeah, I do both, because I think both can be really beneficial, especially like for people who just want like some questions answered. I offer like one-off calls where people can just book in for 1 hour for a fee.
Cool.
And they're great for beginners and also for people that are just like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Can you just look at what I'm doing and have a quick overview? But really, the majority of my business comes from repeat customers and people that I work with over the long term. So like some people I'll do like weekly calls with, where every week we just kind of assess the upcoming videos. And instead of just me saying lots of big picture stuff and like, you should do this and this, it's actually me applying things with them. And scaling together, like actually trying to provide results for them and show them in real time how we're improving things. And then I do like retainer deals with, the biggest clients. So like going back to that thing again about the kind of small YouTuber versus middle class and bigger creator, like the small YouTuber, you could sell them like a $500 course that might help them. But for a bigger YouTuber, I could sell them a 10K a month retainer package that, in real time with them, we could work towards and show the results. And, if something costs a channel that's maybe making, $1 million a year or 10 million a year or something, if it makes them 20K a month and it costs 10K a month, obviously it's a good deal. So, I kind of cater to different projects. I also do like audits and stuff where I'll like a channel will book in, and it's kind of just a big research and report into what they're doing, just like how a kind of big four accounting firm would do it for like a business looking to streamline their accounting or maybe move country or something. I'll just like say, get on a call with a big channel. They're like, we're trying to get better retention in our videos, which is how much people actually stay on the video, how long they stay for, which is a huge metric for YouTube success. And me and my team will just spend 10 to 20 hours researching that, going through and then doing up a report for them and presenting it to them. So yeah, I do a lot. I don't just focus on one area. I try to just have it flexible to who I'm working with. And yeah, it's multiple prongs. Like there's lots of different places we look at.
Do you know what is so, you wouldn't think so, but I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of companies over the years, in software in, I don't know, 20 countries or something like that. And what you're talking about there of kind of getting results for people in a monetary way is really rare, actually, Mark. What do you think? Like a lot of the companies are like, yeah, we'll do it, but like there's no guarantee, or it's not like there's not going to be a tangible outcome. I mean, yeah, we'll go in and we'll audit your IT.
No promises. Yeah,
it's all very. I love those businesses. Be like, yeah, give me 10, I'll give you 20. I'll take that bet all day. Yeah. I think it's and even I don't know, like there's one of my people that I'm working with now. They really kind of, they get involved with the company. They're consultants as well. They get involved with the company and they're like, okay, this is the value of the company. If we can change some stuff in here and make the company twice as valuable, we get half of what the uplift is. But you don't have to pay us for anything. It might be years. And I'm like, that's some balls, like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the appetite for that, Mark. What do you think?
Paddy, I have a million questions. I'm fascinated with YouTube and what you do. I'll try condense them. For me, like, YouTube is just this absolute massive jungle, and there's so many different things going on. Like, where does Ireland fit into this? Everybody's looking at the States and the UK, and my wife would watch a lot of like the family vloggers and even the detectives, the you know, I don't know what the web sleuths or whatever you call them, and the kids are watching people play Roblox and Minecraft, and a lot of it is American. I know there is some big Irish people as well. Where does Ireland fit into it? Are we behind the curve? Are we getting involved? And then where do you fit into the Irish kind of famous YouTubers, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of Irish things, we are kind of behind the curve, and I love the country, but you know, it's like, you know, rural broadband, or you know, a lot of technical advancements. We're quite often a few years behind America. Not in terms of like, I think we've got amazing talent in this country, and we've got a lot of good. I mean, there's a lot of great companies based in Dublin, of course, people like HubSpot. But I do think that the average kind of Irish person, we kind of do follow how things trend in bigger countries, purely because we're a small country. So when I think of Ireland and I think of Ireland viewership, YouTube is actually, it's big in Ireland. Obviously, like most Irish people of my age or whatever are probably watching YouTube, but compared to how it's penetrated in, you know, North America, how it's penetrated in some of the Asian markets, and even in Central Europe, it pales in comparison, honestly. And that's just straight from data. Like, even, I mean, it's not the best, most accurate representation, but a channel like mine, the viewership I get is probably a good idea of how different countries are viewing YouTube as a career. And I get very little viewership from Ireland. You know, it's still like, I think in the lifetime of my channel, it might have been seen by like 150,000 Irish people or something, which might seem like a lot of people. And it is, but compare that to the viewership I get in the UK, the United States, it's tiny. Which in some ways is a good thing, because even at my size, I think if I was in certain places in America, I'd probably get recognized there, you know, a lot, but I could just be completely anonymous in Ireland, and no one really knows who I am. There's no like attention towards me, which I quite like, because that's the kind of person I am. But yeah, like Ireland definitely doesn't have as big of a scene. We've had some bigger Irish YouTubers, but if you look at their audiences, like people like Jacksepticeye, I think he's the biggest Irish YouTuber ever. Huge audience. But if you were to break down his demographic and his analytics, you know, it's probably like 0.2% of views are from Ireland or something. I don't have access to his analytics, so I don't know for sure, but it would be very small. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, we're a small country, but I do think things sometimes take a little bit longer to catch on here. And also, just in terms of the creator side of things, maybe it's a symptom of Irish culture, maybe it's a symptom of how we view these things, but I definitely think people in Ireland are a bit more hesitant to start something like that, and to you know, like you said before we went on about, you know, so many people are just doing nothing. Like, so many people just don't actually kind of make the step and try to put themselves out there a little bit. And that's why you like having those people on the podcast. And I definitely relate to that. Like, even say 5 years ago, I was 5 or 6 years ago, I can't even remember. I think it's six years ago, I was leaving secondary school. And at the time I had another channel that had like 60 or 70K, and it was bringing in revenue as well. Like, it was making me some decent money. But if I was to say to, you know, family, friends, anyone, teachers, that I was thinking of maybe taking some time to do YouTube full time, they'd think it was crazy. Whereas if you flash forward kind of 5-6 years, if you were saying someone in the class of 2022 in sixth year, if they had like a YouTube channel that had 70K, maybe now we'd be more open to saying, yeah, you should give that a try. You know what? That could be a good career path. Because there's plenty of people like that don't have any subscribers or any views or any proof of making money that still want to take the time to give it a try. But, you know, when I was in school, I didn't even share that I had a YouTube channel. I never even told any friends. It wasn't until after school that people realized I had all these things going on in the background. Yeah. And it wasn't really like, you know, it's not always just because Ireland is kind of a bit close-minded, but like, you know, when you're doing the thing, it can kind of be a bit intimidating to share that with lots of other people. You think they might kind of, you know, think it's stupid or whatever, but things are changing. But we're always like a few years behind America in those things, I think.
think about how far ahead you are, Paddy, now, because if I asked my kids recently what they both want to be when they grow up, one of them wants to be an animator, like an artist. That's what she's into, but she wants to have her own YouTube channel doing that. And she actually does already. And she put together something and showed me it, like emailed me a link of this YouTube. I think I sent it to Luke. It's like a time lapse of her drawing this figure and like overlaid with like a sound, a kind of chilled music, and then overlaid again with like the sound of scribbles. She just went ahead and did it on her own. That's a 9-year-old, right? And then my 7-year-old flat out wants to be a YouTuber. Isn't that interesting? Like,
yeah, that is the most common career wish for. I think I saw some study which was like interviewing primary school kids in America, and it was like something like 50% of them wanted to be YouTubers. And obviously that's that's kind of, by the time they're 18, maybe a lot of them will change their minds. But like, when I was 15, I wanted to play for Man United. I wanted to play for Man United, or I wanted to be in like a grunge rock band or something. And yeah, I think things have definitely changed. And the one thing I would say about YouTube is, and to your son and anyone else like of that age, it's a whole industry, and so many people that want to be YouTubers. Maybe they won't all become YouTubers, but some of them will become people that work behind the scenes for YouTubers, people who maybe thumbnail designers. Maybe you said your daughter was into animation, maybe animators on YouTube channels, which I think if the passion is there for creating content, it's like such a fun and rewarding industry to be in.
People are desperate for content as well. Like I've got into this thing on YouTube where I did a cleanup of like anything that was anyway negative, or I can get into the Fox News stuff if I want to, even if I don't agree with it. I enjoy them shouting. Do you know what I mean? A little bit, but it's bad for the the morale overall. So I clean up everything. Now YouTube doesn't really know what to make of me now, but it's suggesting just stuff. There's almost nothing for me to watch. But I actually prefer watching, or like if I go for a walk, I'll put on YouTube on my phone and put it in my pocket. Do you know, because it's easier to search for than long form podcasts. Do you know what I mean? So I think things are changing there. But it's interesting that when you were leaving school, and that was only a few years ago, really 5 years ago, that it was outside of the matrix. That's the problem. Your matrix, you're in car, you're doing your leaving cert, man. That's you got to go to Deloitte or something for some reason. I know Mark did go to Deloitte, but I'm not wrong with that. I'm not having a go, Mark. But you know what I mean? Yeah. But my point is,
but it's also, sorry, Luke, it's also like a vehicle in itself for whatever your chosen, I don't want to say profession, but like career choice may be. Say I was, after college, I tried to be an artist full time, right? Before I became an accountant, and I was selling great in galleries for thousands, living the dream. But it was real, like I had to slog away at painting these paintings, and then I'd sell it, and then it was gone. And that was before I did prints and stuff. But if I had a YouTube channel, that would have opened up a whole different line of, well, one, advertising for myself, and then maybe some sort of income stream. But that wasn't there at the time now, in fairness, 15 years ago or whatever. But it can be a vehicle then for whatever your chosen career is.
And there's one guy, Paddy, on the that you do a breakdown of and it's kind of what Mark's talking about there, where he's doing all types of money making schemes on top of just the YouTube stuff. His name is Graham Stephan.
Yeah.
Like I actually really like his content, but his voice really annoys me. I don't it's hard for me to get past him. Mark, I'm sure you've seen him. He's kind of like, I would say, like I don't know, he's a young guy, real estate investor. He makes kind of investing videos, but Paddy does a great breakdown of how this guy makes money. And Paddy, when you actually go through exactly what his plan is, it becomes very obvious. Then I was watching a video of him afterwards. I'm like, I know what you're doing here. Paddy told me what well, maybe describe what that guy does to generate money more. Like he's built a business around it, the whole thing, right? Yeah. I mean, so like there's this kind of false narrative that to be a YouTuber and to make money on YouTube, you have to like be some extroverted college jock who runs around with a camera acting the idiot. But really, like whatever niche or interest you're in, there's a developing industry on YouTube for it. So like in his case, he was really into real estate investing, and he was one of the first channels to start posting videos about real estate investing, where he'd break down
you know, what he was doing, how he was flipping, how he was doing different things. And then over time, it just developed into a thing where at the start it was really good for his actual real estate career, because it's like, wow, I actually talk about real estate. It gets his name out there. People seem to see him as like an expert because he's actually building in public, I think is a really good way of phrasing it. But then over time, like, because when you think about it, that niche, real estate investing, finance, stock investing, it's one of the most lucrative and cash intensive industries in the world. So if you think about an entertainment channel, if they do a brand deal, they might do a brand deal with like a mobile app for like a video game or something, or maybe like a clothes company. And like their cost of acquisition per customer is going to be very low. It might be like $2 or $3. So the amount they pay for YouTube video isn't going to be as high. But if something like Wealthfront, or, you know, a big investing company, or life insurance, or any of these like companies that would circle people who are interested in real estate investing and stuff like that, their cost of acquisition could be like $100. So for someone like Graham, he gets good viewership, but he's got like 8 million views a month, which is a lot. But when you compare 8 million views a month to, let's say, other niches, 8 million views a month in like entertainment could be maybe like 20 or 30K a month, which still sounds like a lot. But for him, 8 million views a month could be like 200 grand a month. And that's just because he's leveraged himself in this really high value niche. And he's just built on, you know, all these different little systems on top of it. And the beautiful thing about it is the actual marketing is free content for people. So his videos kind of serve as marketing, and they serve as like the thing that brings people into the channel, into his kind of whole ecosystem. And no one can really begrudge that. Like, he's putting out free content. So if you don't want to buy anything, don't buy it. It's free content. You're still in his debt kind of, because he's giving you all this free stuff. And the same with myself. Like, you know, you don't have to, and I don't recommend everyone does. Like, if, you know, I typically target people who are making quite a bit of money on YouTube, maybe 7-8 figures. So, you know, I'm not selling to people who are just at the beginning, or maybe they're just scraping money together. I still do stuff with them, but typically it's the bigger client. And I just say, you know, if you can't afford this, or if you don't think it's right for you, just watch my videos. It's free advice. And that's the beautiful thing about YouTube. No one's paying for it. The advertisers are paying for it. You know, they're the ones that pay for the content, and the viewer gets to see it for free. So it's a great model.
It's funny. I heard somebody talk about Gary V today, saying that he had an idea of having restaurants, but not charging for the food, but having advertisers pay him.
Provide that.
I don't know how we would work it, but it was just an idea, just based on that kind of thing.
It's the same thing, though. Same model. Like, because if you said to someone, I don't know, 50 years ago, that you're going to start making like movies and put them on the internet, and the customer can just watch it for free, they don't have to pay for like a cable for TV or a TV fee, or if they've got like any kind of smart device, they can watch it. That probably would have sounded a bit crazy. Like, who's paying for the production? Who's paying for this? But really, it's, you know, it's all the advertisers on top of things. And the even better thing is, if you don't want to see advertisements, you can pay YouTube $11.99 a month, and then you don't see any advertisements. You know, and that still contributes to the creator. In fact, the creators make even more money from people who've got YouTube Premium, because they get like a small revenue split.
Okay, I've so many, like, Luke, we're going to be jumping in here for questions, but I have a question here. If, say, you have somebody like Paddy in 6th year coming out now, is obsessed with YouTube content creation, really goes deep on it, you know, on their own, is learning as much as they can, wants to make a career of it. What are some kind of hard numbers that they'd have to kind of realize that in order to actually make a living? And I'm not talking like being rich or anything yet, but like for somebody to actually not have to have another job, what kind of viewership views? I know it'll vary depending on the industry, but what are kind of some hard numbers there? Like,
and Mark, just to put even more final point, like, what's for you coming out of college? What do you need to make a living, Mark? What do you think? Like a proper, where you can actually kind of rent in Ireland?
Probably like a trainee, let's say like a trainee professional is probably on about 30 grand, but like that's usually, like, most people probably need about, I don't know, when you're leaving college, it does vary. You kind of have to do that tiered thing, but like anywhere from, I see graduates coming out anywhere from 30 to 40 now.
Yeah. And actually, something I didn't bring up earlier was when I graduated college, I actually had a job lined up at Accenture as like a tech analyst, and you know, it was kind of around that ballpark, like 30 to 40 grand graduate salary. And it's funny because that was like something I looked at in 2019, 2020, and I was like, I wonder if I could make more on YouTube. And at the time I didn't have the consulting business. I didn't have a lot of other things. I just was making money on the channel. And it was kind of like a bit of a leap of faith, but it's really, really worked out, obviously. But in terms of like what people need to be looking at in terms of hard numbers, like, so I hate to just kind of say that again and just say it's so dependent on niche, but it is, because if someone's making like funny reaction videos to popular events, they need a lot of views. Whereas if someone's like making investment advice videos for Irish people or something, they might only need a few thousand views. Like I know people that make property investing videos for the UK audience, and he might have like 20k subscribers and get like 3,000 or 4,000 views a video, and that's enough. Like that would cover the 35 grand. He could build enough of a business just on that with 20k subscribers and a few thousand views a video. But then if you wanted to, let's say, make a vlog channel or reacting to funny events or reacting to the TikTok videos or whatever, you more likely need kind of around 1 million views a month. If you're getting 1 million views a month, that's probably around 3 or 4k from ad revenue. So that's a good living, I suppose. So yeah, I'd say for non-high value niches, you want 1 million views a month. Subscriber size really doesn't matter. I would just set that as your ballpark number. But then yeah, for niche channels, I mean, you can build an incredible career with like 100k views a month, which really isn't that high. Like it's, maybe it's like putting out a few videos, maybe it's putting out like a few videos a week and getting 1,000 views a video or something. And then added to your older library, you might be getting to that 100k views a month. I know for my channel, when I took that, or when I had that job offer at Accenture, what I said to myself is if I can average 10,000 views a video, and I make 1 to 2 videos a month, combined with the other income streams I knew I could build, and combined with the potential for a consulting business as well, I knew that was enough to pay for, to cover that salary. And, fast forward 2 years and I averaged like 700k views a video. So if you kind of start out with that baseline of saying, if I can get 10k, I can make a living, then everything past that point is just, just gain. It's just scale to add to it. Yeah.
But I think that's great to talk about, because that first step is actually what gets somebody in. And once you're in, well, then you're in, and then you can, it's like starting any business. It's the first bit that's the hardest bit.
So, me and Mark, I was talking about this as well. Like if you actually did something full time, what the impact that you could make. Like I work full time as well, but I put a lot of hours into what I do, and I get paid really well and all that good stuff. And the problem is that it is when you take the essential job, or insert quote unquote good job after college, a few things happen. One, you start to get addicted to that paycheck. Two, you think that you're doing well when you may not be doing well. You're only talking to people that are around you, so you don't know what's happening inside. You get institutionalized. And three, you start to get competitive with other guys in the thing, and you're like, fuck, I want to be a manager. Fuck this, Yeah,
it's exactly what they want.
Yeah, exactly. You start to behave like the kind of rats that they've built the cage for, And it's just human nature, I think. And then you start saying the only kind of, if you're an Accenture, the only, baller that has a secondhand Mercedes and he's 42, and that's what you're going for. Do you know what I mean? My point is, you really didn't have too much people who are in Ireland that were doing, that type of money in YouTube. You had to kind of, like I said, take a leap of faith and give it a lash. Like,
that's exactly it.
Paddy, to use the SharkPod as a maybe a little bit of a template here, a little bit of an example. Now we produce our podcasts like this, but we're recording this on Zoom. We just throw it onto YouTube. Now again, we're not trying to be YouTubers, but like we think the content we have is really valuable, including this. Where do you think that most people, where do you imagine, without going in depth and looking at the YouTube channel that we have, where's the kind of areas that usually people go wrong? Or is there any kind of quick things you can do to kind of just get you that step up? Luke's sharing it here now.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, so like the straight away thing to me is you're creating your thumbnails in a branded fashion. So that's good for everyone who knows your podcast, but it's terrible for anyone who doesn't. Because just think about it this way, if one of those episodes came across your feed, the ones in the top row there, and let's just say you'd never interacted with your podcast before, you didn't know the podcast, it's not the most interesting thing you could do. It's branded. It's almost a bit alienating, because if you don't know what the brand is, you're kind of like, okay, who's this? Like, it's a kind of just a very blue font with episode numbers over it. And like, even the idea of an episode number, if I see episode 86, like, why would I just randomly click the 86th episode of a podcast if I have no idea about the podcast previously?
But you know what we're doing, Paddy? We're automatically assuming, like, we're acting like a Joe Rogan podcast. That's what he does. Do you know what I mean? But we're not at, God knows how many.
Because I did some. So I get quite a lot of podcast requests, which is an interesting thing about being a YouTuber. Even although when I look at my subscriber size, I think it's tiny compared to the people I work with. But I guess it's relatively big in the grand scheme of things. And I get like a lot of people coming on and saying, would you come on my podcast or whatever? And I just sort of say to myself, I'll jump on Irish podcasts, because obviously I love Irish people. I'm Irish. It makes sense. And I was on a few other Irish podcasts over the last month or two. And the advice I said was, if I gave the episode to them and I said, okay, make the thumbnail and title, they would have done a really heavily branded thumbnail, and they would have started the title even with like episode, just like you're doing there, SharkPod number 73. And just by design, like, why would someone who doesn't know the SharkPod click on that? SharkPod number 73. It's just I don't know what the SharkPod is. It's irrelevant. The episode number again is irrelevant.
Do I have to invest 76 episodes to get involved here? Is it
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Luke, scroll down, Luke. Just there is, and I know this isn't great for the listeners, but there is. We did attempt at one stage. We actually gave it a little bit of a focus, and we start doing. Look at that one there with Graham Kenny. So we kind of did little snippets, and you can see already the views are actually 5 times what the other ones are. Are we along the right lines doing that a bit more?
Yeah, like, so I would think much more about the actual story that you can like. So for example, episode 26, Thomas Arnold, YouTube entrepreneurship with Thomas Arnold. That's very vague. Like, what am I actually getting from this video? Whereas if for example, I think this is the title I gave the other guy, Gary Fox, who you might know, that I jumped on the podcast with. It was like how Paddy Galloway built his YouTube empire. I know it sounds a bit cringy, but suddenly there's like a story there. And then the image was just me maybe holding up like a silver play button from YouTube. And it said something like 1 billion views in 2021 or something like that. Because that's one my clients, when I add them all together, that's how much views they pull per year. And I guess the way to think about it is like, how can you tell more stories with them? So even like, so I saw like a few people there. So I saw I actually was on a call with him recently myself. Trying to think of his name now. Big real estate developer from South Dublin.
Gavin
yeah.
No, I don't think I can't think of his name now.
Was he on our
yeah, he was. I just saw him there a minute ago when I looked at the episode. I think I can't remember his name.
I'd say it's Gavin, yeah.
Joe.
Joe. Oh, Joe. Joe Doyle.
Joe Doyle. One of my faves.
Let me just look here. I can't remember the name. I don't think. Oh no, yeah, it was Gavin J. Gallagher. Yeah, that was who it was. Sorry, my bad. Like, I mean, in this case, so SharkPod number 76, Celtic Tiger property tales, and that bit's cut off, which in itself is a lesson. Your titles are a bit too long. That's way too long. That's about, I mean, that's like 90 characters. I can tell by eye. I mean, you want to be doing titles that are like 50 characters or less. So it's just very easy to read and click right away. So, I mean, this guy, I talked to this guy, and he's an incredible story. I think I remember him telling me, like, how much his portfolio was in the Celtic Tiger and how much it crashed. And I'm sure that, like, he mentioned stuff like that in the interview. So it's almost like you're making like almost like a headline for like the Irish Times with the Celtic Tiger property tales and the mindset of the comeback. And that's a great title for like an article in a newspaper.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
But I would go like how this real estate investor lost 17 million in the crash. Now, I don't know if he lost 17 million. I don't want to throw Gavin under the bus. I'm sure I have no idea about the actual numbers. But let's just say how Gavin J. Gallagher lost 17 million in the great crash, or how this Irish real estate developer lost it all. Something like that is just much more of a story that I'm going to click on and know right away. And these guys, Dara Jordan and Eric that's very hard to pronounce that name. Gentetics. That's a great name, actually. Wow.
Yeah.
Like
those guys would know that for that name. Anyway.
Yeah, those guys. I've seen some of this stuff before. They're young guys. I think they're younger than me, and they've got an agency that's going to New York. They're doing really well. So, like, instead of SharkPod number 75, Breaking America, which again is kind of like a movie title, as opposed to an interesting YouTube title? What if it's something more like how these two 20-year-olds from Galway built a $1 million agency, or whatever the fact of the agency size is.
Yeah.
How these two kids from Galway did this. That's much more interesting. I guess, like, imagine my channel. So you guys have seen my channel.
Yeah.
Imagine if every video on my channel was like, YouTube Masterclass episode 4, Beluga, the growth of this YouTuber, or Mr. Beast from North Carolina to the world's biggest YouTuber. Like, it sounds like an interesting title, but really, if you break that down and say, okay, how about how Mr. Beast built his business empire? It's like a story. It gets your attention. You want to click straight away, and then that's complemented with the thumbnail. Whereas your thumbnails here, they're extremely text heavy. I like to tell all my clients to limit text to 3 to 4 words, and you have on average here like kind of 10 to 20 words. So it's just so much. Like, if you look at that thumbnail, it takes you almost like 10 seconds just to process it. You don't have 10 seconds on YouTube. You've got a second. You've got a second to show the viewer that the video is worth clicking. So I use text, but on my channel, if you see any of the videos that come up, there's like 3 or 4 words, and they're really engaging words, like the smartest entrepreneur on YouTube, or the man who broke YouTube, or the man who beat YouTube's algorithm. Like, if you see those words, it's complementing the title, and it makes you understand the video right away and click, as opposed to episode 75, Dara, Jordan, and Eric, founders, Graph and Digital, breaking America from Galway. It's too branded. So I think you're just coming at it from the wrong angle. But I see that a lot with podcasts.
I think
I think people use a lot of podcasters. It's all about Spotify and stuff like that, and you kind of use YouTube as an afterthought. And it shouldn't be, because the work is actually being done quite passively here. The recording's being done on video, so why not do it properly?
What we're doing there, Mark, is we almost treat it like it's a little library for our own. We're not thinking about the user at all. Do you like, right? So
well, you know what, to be honest, Paddy, I thought, like, this is just really hard. That's why I didn't put any effort into it. Like, are we kidding ourselves anyway if we actually check all those kind of things that you said and then expect any kind of big decent numbers? Maybe the podcast, it's a kind of Irish entrepreneurs, Irish people doing interesting things. Maybe that's never going to kick off on YouTube. Do you know?
I mean, there is that side of things, but like, it depends what kickoff is. If you're asking me, do we think we can get 10,000 or 50,000 views a video? No. But in terms of the guests you have on, I think that's kind of natural. So you've got really interesting guests, and the point of the podcast is not to like get on loads of influencers who have huge followings that can get views for the podcast. The point of it is to bring on interesting people. Yeah. But even with that said, like, I saw some of those episodes, and when I thought of those titles in my head, I'd click on them. I'm probably a perfect target demographic. I'm an Irish entrepreneur. I'm in my 20s. I like listening to lots of business podcasts. And to be honest, I don't think I've watched or listened to your podcast before, because I consume most of my podcasts on YouTube. And if I was recommended any of those videos, I wouldn't click them, because they're too hard to understand the value proposition in the video. So I think, it depends on how you define, but I think, like, right there, that Dara, Jordan and Eric podcast, that had like 1 view. I think if that was titled in the way that I'd said it and thumbnailed in the way that I'd said it, where it was, how these 2 kids from Galway, or how these 22-year-olds from Galway built a global marketing agency, and it was an interesting title or thumbnail with less text, the 2 of those guys, and maybe like a graph or maybe like some text that was just very simple, like from 0 to 10K a month, or whatever revenue they're doing. Like, straight away I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. Now I might actually click it. And I think 1,000 views a video is probably very realistic. I mean, even the podcast I went on recently, I went on another one called the Kickstart Garage with two great lads. And it was a great experience. And I looked at their back catalog, and again, they were viewing it as a library of like, this is where we upload, like, almost like these kind of web series videos, or like, like almost like a Netflix way of arranging episodes. Yeah. But people never consume content like that on YouTube. YouTube is not engineered to promote episodic content. That's why I really advise people away from doing like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Like, it does work on occasion, but in general, people don't consume content like that, and usually don't recommend content like that. Okay. So in their case, I went into like, for their episode, I gave them a kind of suggestion of what to do for me. And again, they did it more like how Paddy Galloway did this, as opposed to like episode 4, Paddy Galloway. It's more like how Paddy Galloway built this or did this. And as far as I know, I haven't checked it, but I think that podcast, like, maybe their average was like 20 or 30 views an episode, and I think that one might have like 400 or 500. So it depends. Like, so that is obviously a big increase, and maybe there is some like that where people might search my name because I'm already on YouTube anyway.
Yeah.
But I feel like if it was with a bad episode, a bad title and a bad thumbnail, it just wouldn't got clicks even if it did get searched.
It's
so
like,
yeah,
we need to think. Like, I think that we need to treat them completely different, because like there's something that I know my brother-in-law Mark likes things to be neat. Let me tell you, right? And I think that when Mark scrolls through Spotify and he sees every episode neatly laid out with the same thing, like I think that you get a little bit of a buzz from that, and to divorce that completely to go on to YouTube, because it's a different beast altogether. And if you want to be successful there, we're gonna have to change the way we do things. So if you do the same thing for 2 years and see, like the problem is, like we do YouTube, or we do podcasting, like you said, Paddy, because we love to talk to interesting people about interesting stuff. That's mainly why we do it, and we grow our listenership through all of the podcast stuff kind of gradually every month. It goes up and up and up, right? And all that great stuff. But it's not the same way with YouTube at all. Like, it's like some subscribers one month, none the other month. It's So
and the inverse of that, the kind of the funny thing about that is YouTube is probably the platform where you get the best organic reach. So like I talk a lot with people who stream on Twitch, like do live stream on Twitch, whether they're playing a game or whatever. Twitch has no real discoverability. Like if you're starting from zero on Twitch, you're going to remain on zero unless you can bring an audience from somewhere else. They don't really have a search algorithm. They don't have a recommendation algorithm. It's just about like people bringing in an audience from somewhere else and bring it to Twitch, or else being like one of the first people to cover a new game or something. And I think I do think there's something similar with podcasts where, like, sure, you can get some reach in Spotify, like in the charts and stuff, but really it's probably not game-changing reach. But let's just say if you put this episode out on YouTube and you title and thumbnail right and it gets 1,000 views, maybe out of those 1,000 views there's 50 new viewers.
Yeah,
probably very difficult to see that sort of conversion to new viewers with any other like medium. So it's the hardest, but it's probably the most rewarding as well. Like I know, like I watch a few podcasts in certain areas I'm interested in, and I nearly always found the podcast through a clip on YouTube. And then I'd watch on Spotify where maybe you might convert better in terms of monetarily or whatever. So yeah, it's the hardest, but it's definitely the most reward with it if you do it right.
I like this idea, and I think that's it's like a top of funnel activity for us for the podcast as well. Discoverability with podcasts is tough, especially at the level that we do, where it's kind of almost through word of mouth. I would say. Sometimes we get a big spike, and I'm like, what happened there? Anyway. But Mark, what are you gonna say?
Yeah, well, the aim wasn't to kind of break YouTube properly, but like we genuinely believe we have great interviews with really interesting people, and there's so much value there, especially for the kind of target audience that we had in mind when we started. So the feedback we get, and I know it's biased because they're obviously they're not going to reach out to us to say it's shite, but they're reaching out and saying like it's like really made a difference to people listening to it. And it's not me. Well, it's not me anyway. It is the guests, So I just think there's so much value there. It's a shame that we don't actually try to push it out to the right people, So there's the motivation.
To flip the switch here, because I know we're running out of time here. Time's flying by. We could pick your brain online here on the YouTubes. But listen, say if I'm starting out, say if you wanted to get the quickest way to say if someone is going to do this full time.
Yeah, of course.
Pick a finance niche if they're into. Well, I suppose they have to kind of be into it. But what was the quickest way to, if I had 6 months and you're like, okay, 6 months, Luke can't earn money anywhere else. He has to be a YouTuber full time. What do I do?
What, are you starting from zero?
From zero, I just walked in. I said, Paddy, let's do it. I'm your guinea pig.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I'd say is you put some very hard confinements on yourself, because obviously you're aware of that with that question, because the nature of YouTube for me is it is a kind of thing I view in like 3 years. Like if you want to build a career on YouTube, I think you need to think 3 years out. And like your first year is typically mistakes and learning. Like it's like, I'm sure you might have seen that podcast about, if you make more than 3 or 4 episodes of a podcast, you're like in the top 1%, because so many people just make an episode and just quit. There's a very big similarity with YouTube, where if you actually stick with it over a long enough period of time, first of all, you're kind of in a category of people that there isn't much of, and you just get better naturally with time, and you can learn things and pick things up. So really, like if you were to say 6 months, I mean, you're going to have to do like a Hail Mary. So I would just say, find a way to leverage a really big topic, whether that's, maybe a really big YouTuber in your space, if there's like a way to make a video about them or on them, or maybe it's like a really big, maybe like the new Apple computers are out. Maybe there's a way to like get like one of the first videos out on a new Apple computer when it's first released. Maybe there's like a huge news trending event, being the first person to cover it. Like, it's difficult though, because there's 1,000 other channels competing for that same slot as well. So really, I think if it's 6 months, you just have to just take big swings, try to make really big video ideas, just put out as much content as you can. Like my strategy is usually put out as much content as you possibly can. So go for the quantity approach. And then once you've made maybe 100 videos, then start thinking about the quality approach. Like, how can I, maybe instead of posting 3 videos a week, how can I post 1 video and spend 2 weeks editing it and getting it perfect? Because naturally you're going to have more chance of actually breaking through into the audience if, you put that much extra effort into a video. So, I mean, in my case, people quite often point to my channel, and like some of my first videos have like 500,000 views. Like, they blew up very early. But what you don't really see with my channel was the fact that I started YouTube when I was 11, and I made 1,500 or something videos before I ever even started that channel. And I had about 40 channels that literally never got past 1,000 subscribers that I couldn't get off the ground. And all that kind of added up to the channel where I am now, where it kind of might look like it happened very quickly. Like I grew really fast, or so I'm on like 280K subscribers with like 25 videos or 30 videos or something. And that might seem like this kind of hack or growth hack, but really it's just because I understood YouTube and I understood the content people want to make. And if you actually watch the videos, the language I'm using, everything is done in a way to hook the viewer, to get more retention, and to make more interesting videos that get recommended more. So honestly, the 6-month confinement is difficult. I think you just need to take a big swing. You need to like look for a real trending topic and try to leverage it. But I would much rather take someone and say, think in 3 years. Maybe the first year is all about quantity. So just getting stuff out there, not thinking about growth, like literally not even looking at your growth, just getting quantity out there. Maybe year 2 is more like learning the trade. So like, okay, you've got lots of content out there, let's tone it back a little bit and let's focus on how can we make better thumbnails? How can we study other YouTubers? Maybe it's a great time to invest in some like consulting, maybe not for me, maybe for someone else, but maybe it's a great time to invest in like, YouTube products, YouTube help. Just surround yourself with YouTube advice and YouTube content, and study other creators in your niche and what they're doing. Maybe that's year 2. And then year 3, I would see that as the year, okay, let's take everything we're learning, all the quality, all the quantity, all the like the videos you've put in the past, what you've learned from every time, and let's make really solid, strong videos that are different and unlike anything else in the niche. And it's quite rare that I see someone adapt that approach to YouTube and mixed with a bit of talent, because the person who trains the hardest in soccer isn't always the best, and they don't always go on to be a pro. But if you take that long-term approach and you do have some talent and entertainment value, or it doesn't have to be entertainment, maybe it's education, maybe it's another kind of value add to the audience. It's very rare to see someone not get traction if they invest that much time and effort.
That's brilliant. And I think there's going to be somebody listening to this podcast that will be like, okay, I've got, there's somebody in Ireland that's doing this. I've made a career of this. This is what I always wanted to do. And I think, it's one of those episodes that'll have an impact on somebody, hopefully. And there is one more question before we let you go. Would you prefer a t-shirt with the SharkPod logo or a mug?
I think a t-shirt. I'd love a t-shirt.
We'll get that out to you after this. Paddy, thanks so much for coming on the SharkPod today. We didn't get a chance to ask all the questions that we wanted to, but we wish you continued success. A really, really interesting thing. And I think that Mark's kids might be the next YouTubers. They've got some time. They got 2 years on you, Paddy. So watch out.
I better be careful. Yeah, no, listen, it's an absolute pleasure. Really, really enjoyed it. I love your style of being very conversational and not just interrogation. So that's really nice. I love it. And yeah,
whatever. Yeah, it's like
if you have like if you have other questions, let's not rule out a part 2 in the future sometime.
Absolutely.
let's do a remodel of our YouTube and be like, hey, Paddy, what do you think about this? You know, that might be good. You can do.
Yeah, sounds great.
Next time, don't hold back. That's what we want, right? Thanks, Paddy. Bye.
Thanks, Paddy.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks,
Take
Emil.
care. See you. Okay, that was all.